I will go ahead and start. My name is Chris Perry. So if this is what you're looking for, you're in the right place. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the NGO and what we did with Drupal. Before I go too far, I want to remind everyone, if you read the full description, this is a non-technical session. So we're not going to be going into Drupal, and I'm not going to be showing you actually how to do these things. I'm just doing a demo of the potential of what can be done. The site that we're going to be looking at was built with Drupal 7. It's actually a few years old. It's pretty effective despite being a few years old. It's organized with blocks and views, and that's what I really want to show you, and how the content is reused throughout the site. And then also it uses a couple of search tools. The Apache Solr with facets, and how many are familiar with that? Okay, who in here is a developer? Okay, great. So if someone asks a question that I can't answer, you'll answer it, right?
I actually want somebody to actually somebody.
And it also uses the Search API, not the Drupal core, but the Search API. So if you have any questions during the session, just stop me. I would rather answer them right on the spot than wait till the end. Just a little bit about me so that you know where I'm coming from. I am currently at the American Board of Pediatrics. I had a little short 8-month stint at HHS, Department of Health and Human Services for the US. I worked in Secretary Burwell's office, and I managed all of the websites that are part of the HHS family. There were probably 30 different sites. The site I'm going to show you is when I was at FHI 360, and that was my first Drupal site. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Previously, I was at the UNC Gillings School of Global Public Health for 7 years. We used Joomla there. And then my first site was when I worked at Child Care Services Association, and I built it myself in Claris homepage 1.0. So that's a little bit about me. I am in communications. I'm a communications person and a project manager. So I manage websites from the communications side. And I tend to think of developers as, well, for most of the time I've used developers who have been my vendor. So that's where I'm coming from. So FHI 360, that's what we're here to talk about. It is an international non-government organization, programs in more than 70 countries in all of the US, many years, 40 years of scientific research and a lot of scientific activities, a lot of health and science work. Basically, every product that has been built in the United States for the purpose of family planning has been through FHI labs for quality assurance. Just a little fun fact. And there's a nice little condom lab in Durham, North Carolina that's fun to go visit. They do local solutions. So there's 4,700 employees, but they are scattered all over the world. And the ones that are not the 1,000 in the US actually are hired in their country, and they work in their country, and they live in their country. So there are a lot of materials that this group produces in a variety of languages, but also just a large number of materials. So how did we get there? We started, right before I was hired, 2 large NGOs were merged. And the first one is, well, it's cutting off a little bit, but I think that's okay. The first one was FHI, which stands for Family Health International. And then the other one, AED, was the Academy for Educational Development. And FHI acquired the assets of AED. They both had been around 40 years. They were both in many, many states. They both had a lot of programs going, or many countries. They both had a lot of programs going on. So when they merged, obviously they needed a new website. So they hired a vendor who was going to help build the new website. They recruited me. There was a lot to organize. And both organizations were using their website almost like a library. they were storing every document they'd ever produced on their sites. The new site, and this is with careful pruning, has 3,444 index pages. One of the reasons they have to put so much on their website is because 90% of their funding is from USAID, and USAID grants often require that people make the information public. Whatever, if you've got funding to prepare a brochure, then that brochure needs to be public. And this is the way that people generally do it. Notice, though, that there are only 42 basic pages. And then there's these practice areas, service pages. These are all different types of all different content types that are used on the site. Some of them create pages. Some of them just are the building blocks to create a view or put together a page. So, based on the size of the site, I think it has a significantly small number of basic pages. The resources down here are actually broken into 2 more categories, publications and tools, and the articles up there, they had features, events, news, and announcements. So this is what I just showed you pretty much, but I just did it graphically to look at it another way. Because the magnitude of the content, this is sort of the what we do, and their old website actually said what we do, which is pretty bad for SEO. But that's what they had. We turned these areas into taxonomy, and then all of these were sort of all the components. So ideally, someone who had, our health director, whose practice area was health, probably has 100 experts, 50 projects, 1,000 publications. And you can't really build a page that says health and put 50 experts and 1,000 publications and, plus some videos and other things on it. That doesn't work. So what I want to show you before we get into the demo is how we took all those items and coordinated them. And these are just examples of in the Drupal interface. So for example, on the practice area page, people could put in expertise areas, and that would automatically populate on the page. Projects, so there's a page for this project, but then you put it in here and it shows up on the practice area page, and you'll see that in a minute. Slides, if you put a slide in here, you make the slide somewhere else in the slide content type, but then if you put it here, it shows up on that page. Same thing with experts. This over here is the taxonomy for countries. It's just A to D, but in almost every page in the back end, there is a list like that that has all the countries, all the practice areas, all the expertise, and all the services. And based on how you check things off, I lost my word, it determines where on the page that content will fit. Any questions so far? Okay, and then I did mention search, because search is part of this demo, but just very briefly. It's using the facets. So who's familiar with facets? Okay, our developer. Awesome. Facets are little blocks that you put on a page that help people filter search results. But we also used it not only for our search results, but for our page content as well. And then the organic search, using the search API, which allowed us to customize our search results page. We added a keyword field, which gave us a little more control over our search results. And then we also, with that, we were able to determine which content types did we want to search, which fields within those content types did we want to search, and then we had the ability to boost some of these locations. So for example, I've got it in my notes here somewhere. We boosted, in our case, we boosted keywords and gave the keywords a boost of 21 times. And the reason we did that is because that gave us more control. Sometimes you can't control how many times a word, let's say the word is HIV, you might not be able to control from a content manager perspective, you might not be able to control how many times that word is in the title or how many times it's in the report, but you can put a different word or put it into the keyword and then boost that significantly. Okay, ready for the demo? Okay, here's our site. You'll see at the top there's a menu that doesn't have any drop downs. These are more, it's not really a utility menu, but they're more utilitarian type of content in there. I want to point out the low bandwidth option, which we did. There's almost like a mirror site that's low bandwidth, and that's because of people in the 70-some countries. Many of them have difficulty accessing the internet. Some of them in some places get maybe an hour of internet service a day, and then it's shut off for the rest of the day. So we had that option. To save money, we used Google Translate for our languages. There is a Drupal module for that, but we went with Google Translate and chose, with Google Translate you can choose only 3 or whatever languages you want. And we did that even though we're in more countries. We had native speakers test these out, and these were really the only 3 that were pretty good. Some of the other languages with Google Translate are just awful, and we didn't want to make it worse. Carousel, sliders, whatever you want to call them, usability says they're not very good because people don't really use them. It doesn't help people get to the content, but as you know, marketers love them, and so there they are. But each little piece, so on this is called a slide, each little piece here, the title, the text, the read more, the picture, those are all fields in a content type called slides. This actual homepage content has nothing but choosing which slides go on it and this sentence. Everything else is just pulled in like a block. So solutions are one type of news story. There's blog articles, which are actually coming from a different Drupal site. There's this news and announcements, which is put in. Lots of news on this site. The Twitter feeds, some partner logos. These are also a separate content type just to get the little logo in there. And then it's very cool because every hour if you refresh, like if I refresh now, nothing's going to happen, but if I wait an hour and refresh, they'll all change because there's more than 10 in the back end, and they change locations and new ones pop in and some pop out, and so it's constantly changing. That's the home page. This is the main menu, and I kind of skipped that because this is, at the beginning I mentioned the taxonomy areas, the practice areas, the services, countries, and then there's one more called expertise. But first I just want to show you about us for a minute. So when we talk about basic pages, this is a basic page, this is a basic page, this is a basic page. I mean, we've already found, 3? This is a basic page, but not very many of them. The Partner With Us menu has 2 or 3 of them. The Careers menu has a few. So they're scattered throughout the site, but really not very many. Most of the pages are more like this one, where the only thing on the actual page itself is this banner image and this intro text. And then the rest of this is all done with a view. So for each one of these people, we have an expert profile. And then let me pull up Dr. Mastro. Where is he? The Chief Science Officer. So each one of these has their own profile, but then for that senior management page, just little snippets of it are pulled out. I'm going to come back to this expert profile in a minute. Okay, let me move on to our big four, what I call the big four, the taxonomy. buttons. So these are actual pages and taxonomy both. So the taxonomy gives us that checklist in the back end. I love that you keep nodding. That's really reinforcing.
Well, I've done something similar. You can see Charlotte with the finance group who had lots of documents. They narrowed really well for me down to their main processes in a spreadsheet and different kinds of content. So we did sort of an engineering project like that there.
Yeah. So the practice areas on each one, let's pull up health. That's the biggest one, so I like to pick on it. Since it used to be Family Health International, they changed, they're using the FHI 360 because they're no longer just health. And a lot of that had to do with that acquisition of the other company. But on this health page, it's the banner and this paragraph at the top, and that's it. The rest of it is all some kind of view or block or whatever you want to call it that's pulled in. So there's some slides at the top. So these people can, whoever's managing this page can choose from the slide gallery. So every slide that's ever been put on the site, they can just go in there and say, I want these 3 or these 6 or whatever they want. They choose these expertise areas. This is another one of our taxonomy areas. So if we look at, I'm going to look at HIV and AIDS. So this is a expertise page. It's a little less fancy than the practice area page. I'm going to show you these buttons in a little bit. But here we've got some slides at the top. They have some other links. If we go to key populations, this is another expertise page. So there are expertise pages and then sub-expertise pages. But in the taxonomy, we just call them all expertise because the sub-expertise is what the business knows. The person on the outside coming in does not know the difference between expertise and sub-expertise. But this gives an example of how the expertise pages are populated with experts sometimes, not always. But if there are particular people that are working in that particular area, then we have a way to feed that in. So that's a nice little block. Back to my health page. So there's expertise. Some of these practice areas have as little as 4 expertise areas. I'm showing you again probably the best or worst case scenario depending on how you look at it. Featured projects. So project was another content type. So there are project pages, and these are just pulled in. These are the top 10 is defined by the business unit. And they'll use that little thing that I showed when I was showing sort of the fields in the back end where they can start, you just start typing in the name of the project and the full thing comes up and you say, yes, I want it on this page, and there it is. There's experts, they can choose which experts they want on their page. The stories and highlights, rather than letting them choose, Drupal chooses for them the 10 most recent stories or highlights. And for resources, it's supposed to choose the most recent 5. I don't know why there's only 4 on this page, because I know that they have thousands. But this was a way, it was a way to make our business units happy with the result. So that, no, we can't put 100 documents and we can't put all 50 experts on a health page. It's just not going to work. But we're going to let you choose the most important ones you want, and then we're going to have this little button here that's going to take somebody to all the rest of them. So there's always a way to see all the experts, all the stories, all the resources. I want to show you under stories and highlights just a little bit. There's a variety of things in there. There can be videos, and I just learned, I think, not my last class, but the one before that this module has been deprecated, I think. So good to know. They can be, this one's a news story. They can be, this one's an audio story using SoundCloud.
Is that a module that you use?
SoundCloud is we just put the code in there. It's, it's an embed code. I went back too far. We have event pages, so this is an event page. So we decided, part of the planning process was, well, what qualifies as a story and a highlight? And it started out, it was just stories, but then people in the business unit said, well, we want to put videos, and we want to put blog posts, and we want to put, so we called it generically stories and highlights, and there are certain types of content that fit in here. And again, as I said, it's the 10 most recent, and then the resource is the same thing. If we move on to services, and I'm going to pick capacity building, the page is a little bit less of a page full of blocks and views, but it still has several options in it. It has this little block here for business inquiries, and that is a block only. It's not anywhere else in the site except on the left menu of all of the service pages. There's the option to put slides at the bottom. Not all the pages have them, some do, some don't. In an ideal world, I would still be working there, and I would be making sure that every page has some experts on it. They don't all have experts on them. The experts, the business unit gets to choose their top 5, and then as you go through, the rest of them are random. So they might have 50 or 100 experts, but they get to choose who their top 5 is. So that's kind of cool, and that's just another way that we compromise with the business unit to try to accommodate all of their content, but also give them some choice of what's the most important content. Moving on to countries. Let me pick Nigeria. Countries have a little bit longer of a paragraph, but they also have the option for slides or no slides. If there are no slides, there's not a big white empty space. Everything just moves up, fills up the space. They also have the featured projects. They also have the top 10 most recent stories and highlights. And they also have the top 5 most recent resources. Is this big enough for you guys to see, by the way? I just realized it's probably kind of tiny. So those are the big 4 in the taxonomy. But let me go on to the part that shows the search and how we did that. And how are we doing for time? 2:27. Okay, good timing. Where's my mouse? Okay, so this is our Explore page. And it's actually one of the most used pages on the site because it was heavily promoted. We're always trying to send people there. And let me go ahead and make it a little bigger. So this has the first 2 columns. And the last 2 columns are all the taxonomy areas. And then this middle is not every content type, but the kinds of content types that we think our users might want to search on. Obviously, the partner logos, that's a content type, but nobody's going to we don't even want them to see the page that has partner logos on it. That's only used for the front. But this way, someone could come in and they say, well, I'm looking for health, and I want to find a project, and I want it to be about, I don't know, what's a health project in here? Health research, and I want to see if there's anything in Cambodia. I'm looking for a health project about research in Cambodia. I hit explore, and I get nothing. But let's just try something different. Let's just try health in Bangladesh. So here we have 32 results. What I like about the results pages is that they tell you what content type it is, which, that's helpful to the user. And we don't use the word resources because that's kind of meaningless. The users are really more interested in knowing if it's a publication or a tool. A tool is something they can use, a publication is something they just want to read. So here's a project, here's a past project. So the projects have dates inside, start date, end date, so that when the funding ends, it immediately switches over to past project, and we don't have to manually go in there and keep track of these hundreds and hundreds of grants and not have USAID get mad at us because we list it as a project when it's no longer active. And there are a lot of past projects. I would say on the website now there are more past projects than there are projects, because many of them just have a 2 or 3 year lifespan. But see, past, project. If we go to explore and don't do any choosing and just hit explore, that's where I got that 3,444. So this is not counting things like the partner logos or slides. Slides don't come up in search. And what we did with the search results, if they have the orange bar, that means it's one of our taxonomy areas. So when whatever you put in, if a taxonomy area is a result, it is always going to be at the top of your results. So because we think those are the most important pages. So they show up first. After that, show up projects, resources, maybe that's it. And they're mixed up and in there by most recent on top, going down to less recent. And then at the very bottom, we have the experts and the basic pages. And the basic pages are at the bottom because most of our website viewers are not interested in About Us or careers or what's the other one? Procurement. And the experts, what we found is when they were mixed in with everything else, the search results were just very top-heavy experts. Lots of expert information because they were being updated the most. And that's really not what people are searching for the most part. So we were able to, with the API and Solar, and I'm not sure which one, we were able to determine the sequencing of what we wanted to come up in our search results. Over here on the right, here's the taxonomy again. So if we did search, let's say I searched on Dr. Mastro. There he is. So we've got his expert page, some announcements, some news, published research, video, tool, and it just keeps going. We also have this cool little module that, so you don't have to have pagination. That's kind of a cool little fun little thing. Sometimes it goes so fast you don't even know it. You can just keep scrolling and scrolling if you scroll slow enough. But then if I wanted to narrow down everything about Dr. Mastro, I could do that. So I could say, tell me everything that Dr. Mastro is involved in with capacity building. And there's only 3 results. It's nice because it gives you the numbers on the side. I can go up here and I can get rid of capacity building and say that I want everything about Dr. Mastro that's an article. And there's 29 results. And maybe I want to narrow it down even more, and I say, well, I don't want all the articles. I just want to know the events that he's been affiliated with. And I can get that. The user has a choice between grid view or list view. Most of us liked the the grid view, but we had Dr. Mastro and some others really wanted the list view. And what Dr. Mastro wants, Dr. Mastro gets. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you about that? Just look at my notes for a minute here. Let me show you an example of, I'm going to get rid of all of my filters and just type in HIV. So remember when I was talking about with the search API, you can choose not only which fields to search, or not only which content types to search, but also which fields within the content types. If we search HIV, here's our top 2 results. Well, this one is pretty obvious. We've got HIV 3 times in the title, and based on the configuration, that's worth 15 points. It's like 5 points every time the keyword is in the title. 1 point every time it's in the body. So you can see why this one's at the top. But this one, I don't see HIV anywhere. So why did it end up at the top? Well, it ended up at the top because it's a tool, and it was very important to our people putting together requirements that any attached documents also become searchable. So this page itself doesn't have HIV in it very much, but the document does, all over the place. So it shows up pretty high. So this is what the publications and tools both look like this. They have a little picture with the download, a little abstract, and then sometimes if it's a series, it will have like 5 or 6 under here and not just the one. This is another block, so in the back end, I call it the back end, but it's really just the Drupal interface. The user can click off regions of the world and it automatically spits out this map for them of where this activity is taking place. You can also do, I think this might have been obvious, but you can do a combined search. Yeah, it was. I actually did that, where I put in Mastro, but then I also narrowed it down. Okay. We've got about 6 more minutes. So, briefly, let's see, what have I shown you? What content type did I not show you? Let me go back to my slides. And let's see, we looked at those, experts. We didn't really look at projects. I'll pull up a project for you. You've seen a video. Okay. So let's pull up, let's see, I picked one out that I thought would be good. Where did I put it? I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to pull up one that actually really pushes the design beyond what it was intended to be. And where is it? This is going to be actually an example of a page gone out of control. So it has, similar interests. That's another block, by the way. Here's some slides at the top, some content. And then this group just wanted to they didn't want only their 5 publications at the bottom, so they found a little tricky way to just hand code them in the body. And so this isn't really the best example for me to show you. Most project pages will have maybe some slides, maybe some experts, a little bit of content, 2 or 3 paragraphs, and then they'll go straight down to the bottom part where there's the resources. And this looks like it has way more than 5, so that is apparently broken as well. Project pages also, these are fields in the back end, countries, funder, duration of the project, and that's the key date when it will then become a past project. And on most of the pages, we'll have something at the bottom that encourages people to go somewhere else, like don't stop here. Go back and explore some more or something like that. I'm going to pull up Dr. Mastro again. So the expert pages, I'm not sure if I showed you, we have similar experts here. And there's also, there are a lot of cool things, the share buttons and so on this site, but I primarily wanted to just show you how blocks and views all work. Here's his featured blogs, some select audios. This was hand-coded. I don't know why. This part down here, projects and resources, is broken. I don't know why. I don't know if you've noticed the whole time, too, that it has a sticky header, and it also has these sticky social media buttons. That's kind of cool. Under About Us, we have an experts page. So this shows all of the experts. And we have this alpha list to help people find them because there are so many. What did I say there are? 390 or something like that. There are, believe it or not, some governance. We have governance guidelines that determine who can be an expert and who can't. So everything on the site has their rules and governance about each content type, what's allowed and what's not, as a way of trying to keep people from using the site as a library once again. And if we didn't have some rules on who gets to be an expert and who's not, instead of 390, there would probably be 2,000 or 3,000 out of the 4,700 staff. So that's tightly regulated. And if I go up to the top, the newsroom has some other blocks and things in it. So this whole newsroom page, there's really no content on here. This is pulling the most 5 news and announcements. This is pulling from the blog. There's a subscribe. Here's media inquiries. It looks very much like that business inquiries block. Again, nothing, there's really no original content here. Here's another view, the news and announcements, and we have the filters on the side for those because we found that people were very interested in filtering just the news. Even though you could go to Explore and you can do that, people don't know that. They come to the news page and they want to filter the news. Solutions, those are a certain type of news, which I'm not going to go into, but they are on a separate page here because they originally were a homepage only piece of content, and then people wanted to go back and find old ones. Published research, this is another content type that is pulling into this collection here. And so these are all the different published research articles that the scientists and so on have put together. Also has filters. FHI 360 in the news, that's another content type, is called external news, and this is another view of the external news. Technical experts, this is another, it's just a view. So in the back end of the experts field, and I apologize for saying back end, it's when I was working with other people in the communications team, that was the term that they understood, so I got so comfortable using it that I know it's not really the back end. But there's a checkbox that says, is this person a media contact or is this person leadership? And that's what puts them either on this page or on the leadership page. And it's very similar. We decided what we were going to pull to put in here. Partner with us, careers, there's really nothing to look at there. I want to go back to practice areas because I want to show you, we kind of glossed over these, but remember I mentioned, that, under the projects, here's the view all. So I haven't shown you these buttons yet. This is really cool because every time you click one of these, you get search results. It's all, the search has been done for you. And it goes straight to the search results and gives you all the projects. And that really made our business units happy that they weren't going to lose so much of what they thought was important, but it also wasn't clogging up that home page. And some of the materials, some of the projects, you can't get to them through the navigation. You can only get to them through these search buttons or through the filtering. View all experts in health. Let's see how many we have, 125. That's not too bad. All stories and highlights, so you get the picture. I don't have to click on each one of these. If we go to services, and I'll go to capacity building again, here the buttons are on the right, but these are all pre-searched. You click on it and the search is done for you. It gives you all the projects that have to do with capacity building, or all the news stories, all the resources. It is 2:44, if my eyes are correct, and I haven't heard too many questions. Are there any? Yes.
So at the beginning, you talked about how many documents and how much content there was before and then what it ended up being. And I'm really interested in tools and strategies that you employ to get to where the site is now. How did you go through strategically inventory what you had, weed things out, convert them to other things?
Well,
how did you make those decisions?
We started with the 2 separate sites, and we relied heavily on the business unit leaders. So Dr. Mastro, being the leader of health, he was in charge of that section, and I keep picking on him, but there was someone for economic development, someone for education, and someone for environment, and all the 12 different practice areas. And in the communications team, we have content liaisons. So there were 2 or 3 people who each had places where they were liaison with. So Kelly, our health liaison, would work with Dr. Mastro and say, okay, what are we going to put on the site? Mm-hmm. And we started with, nothing's going on the site. We didn't do any kind of a migration. We just said, what do we want on the site? And we even at launch we started with only 10 country pages at launch because that data was very difficult to collect. Talking to a lot of the countries and getting information from them, we're in different time zones, we don't speak the same language sometimes. So our goal for launch was to start with 10. And it's up to 54. It probably won't go, even though we work in 70 plus countries, it's not going to go higher because some of the countries, the work there is not meaningful enough to create a page. You know, we probably started with 100 experts. I know that there were a lot less projects and resources. So this has grown, but not by leaps and bounds. It's within control because when someone would come and say, I want to put this publication on the website, the question we would ask them is, how does it meet the goal of the website? And in the governance plan, the goal of the website stated that the website is a business development tool to attract grant funding. So if their publication is not going to help us as a business, help us attract business, then we're not putting it on the site. It's not a library, it's not a place to store things. But there still are a large number because, as I said, USAID and other funders demand that their products be public, and so you have to make it public because then they see that you're doing a good job and they'll give you more money. Any other questions?
So like the experts and stuff, are they going in and putting in their information, or is all of this coming in through your?
This is all coming in, so the communications team, this organization has about 15 people on the communications team, and they are all trained, so nobody in the business units puts in the content. We have a couple of, actually one person in our IT department who is a backup, who if everybody that's familiar with that content is on vacation and unavailable, then with the director of communications permission, he can go in and put in some content in an emergency, but it's mostly the communications team.
What was the biggest challenge, do you think, in getting to launch in terms of content and strategy and determining what was going to go, what and where and all that stuff?
The biggest challenge, so I'm going to say the smallest challenge was actually the design. Our vendor was just amazing, and after doing some discovery with us, came up with this. And so it was like, that's it. You hit the nail on the head. That's perfect. The biggest challenge was probably getting the content ready before launch. And again, well, I don't know if it's again, I've heard other people say this. It goes back to the business unit owners being the subject matter experts. You know, and there's no way I can get in Dr. Master's mind and know which publication he thinks is most important and so on and so forth. So our communications people did the best job to write what they could, but there were a lot of back and forth edits, and we had to keep reminding people in the business unit, it's a website, it can grow. So let's just get some product out there. We're a new merged organization, we need a new merged website, and let's get something out there, and then we'll keep adding. And we frequently said, you know, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Here's a little bonus since you're still sitting here. So this is just the article content type. And we put all the field names, the machine names, the field type, where it's used. So, because a lot of times, you know, you see subtitle and you're like, well, where is that? Does that show up in search? Does it show up on the page? Does it show up on this view, that view? So this lists all the places where you can find it, and then, you know, whether it's searchable or not. Or I think searched on also includes filters and things like that. We kind of lumped it together. But we did this for each one of our content types. Any other questions?